Here's a quick video on William Forbes Semphill. And somebody on one of my videos left a comment. Oh, on my video about the parallel government in Japan during World War II. And they left a comment about this guy, William Forbes Semphill, and his role in basically setting up Japan to be able to participate in World War II, right? To set them up to be the quote unquote antagonist against America in the Pacific. I'd never heard of it before. So just did a real quick look into it and no deep dive or anything like that, but some interesting info here if you've never heard of him. And definitely something more to look into. Again, it just shows how massive the conspiracy is, how many people are involved. It's just mind blowing. So um anyway, so the Sempill mission. So you can on the left, you can read the background of William Forbes Sempill and BC Forbes, and they were distantly related. So the Sempill mission, 1921, is a glaring data entry that proves the Beast Systems long-term hardware setup, right? Long-term plan for World War II, while the aristocratic and industrial Forbes lines are distantly linked through the ancient Forbes clan line, their paths converged in the service of the merchant system, right? Of the beast system. The Sempill mission. William Forbes Sempill didn't just provide advice to Japan, he handed over the source code of the modern naval aviation to the Japanese Empire. He brought over 20 British planes and a team of instructors to train the Imperial Japanese Navy. He taught them, basically the instructions of carrier-based flight, torpedo bombing, and flight deck operations. At the time, Britain and Japan were technically allies, but the Beast system was already planning the Pacific reset. By giving Japan the hardware to build a world-class navy, the subverters ensured that when the time came for the next world war, Japan would be a formidable enough proxy to force the United States into the conflict, which really was the U.S. that forced Japan into the war. I think that I don't know. My opinion is that Japan was just basically set up the entire time. From 1921 up until the end of the war. So even though, as my other videos showed, there were elements, right? There was an entire secondary government within Japan that wanted war and possibly wanted the destruction of Japan itself because they weren't actually Japanese. so so yeah, it's a little complex, but anyway, um, even after the official mission ended and the alliance cooled, Sempill continued to leak top secret British software or documents, aviation technical data, to the Japanese for over a decade until the 1930s. Despite being caught by MI5, he was never, quote unquote, deleted. He was never executed or held accountable, right? He wasn't even prosecuted. Proof that he was an asset for the high level beast system, right? If nations were legit and governments were legit, he would have been executed for sabotage and being a traitor. But nothing happened because all the people at the top are working together. The Forbes Media Software Connection. While Semphill handled the military hardware, the American Forbes line, BC Forbes, handled the perception software. Forbes magazine was launched in 1917 to glorify the very merchant princes, right? The Jews, the central banks, etc., and industrials who were funding the global rearmament, right? The one world government. The coordination. By framing the beast system's industrial expansion as the American dream, the magazine helped the public accept the massive infrastructure updates, factories, debt, and global trade needed to sustain a multi theater world war, right? Just 20 years later, right? They only built up America to use the retards living in America to go destroy Europe and Japan. So, hence why after World War II, it's basically been all crap. In our forensic audit of the Great Erasure, the Sempill case serves as a perfect diagnostic of the protected asset protocol. While the Forbes clan lines converged to build the industrial and military hardware, the syndicate utilized the highest levels of British intelligence to ensure their long term Pacific reset remained on schedule. Sir John Masterman, chairman of the 20 Committee, is often celebrated for double-crossing the National Socialists, but his work also reveals how the beast system manages its internal errors. By 1925, MI5 had logged or discovered Semphill's communications. They knew he was being paid by the Japanese and had a servant who was a Japanese naval officer, a literal system tap in his own home. When the director of public prosecution, Sir Archibald Bodkin, reviewed the evidence, he was advised against prosecution. The justification for blocking his arrest was twofold. Semphill's father was an aide de camp to King George V. A trial would expose the system of the royal family to scandal, right? Or expose the history of the royal family to scandal. The encryption security, a trial would reveal that British intelligence had cracked Japanese diplomatic codes. The syndicate decided that maintaining the Pacific theater setup was more important than punishing a spy. Semphill as the architect of Pearl Harbor. Well, I'd say one of many. The Semphill mission was not a diplomatic failure. It was a preload of the specific military software and hardware Japan needed to execute the 1941 World Patch, right, the World War. Semphill provided the technical specs for dropping torpedoes in shallow water. The exact hardware hack, right? The exact knowledge required for the attack on Pearl Harbor, right? For the most part, if you're thinking of torpedo bombing in the Pacific Ocean, why wouldn't you just focus on deep water, right? You're going to be engaging navies out in the ocean. So, carrier processing. He helped design the Hosha, Japan's first carrier, which served as the operating system for the entire Imperial Japanese Navy carrier fleet. The 1941 warning. Even as late as June 1941, MI5 intercepted a message from Tokyo supposedly saying, quote, in light of the use made of Lord Semphill, these payments should continue, unquote. He was still uploading or sharing British naval aviation data just months before Pearl Harbor happened. So the Semphill case proved that the beast system does not view treason the way we do. To the syndicate, Semphill was a spirit driver, tasked with arming a future antagonist to justify global war. By allowing him to bypass the legal, right, the laws of the Official Secrets Act, the subverters ensured the Pacific War would be destructive enough to usher in the new global one world order. The connection between the aristocratic Semphill line and the industrial Mitsubishi engine reveal the dual track strategy of the syndicate. While the standard script calls this consulting, we recognize it as a high level system integration designed to prepare the Pacific for the engineered war of World War II. The Mitsubishi Registry. Mitsubishi was not just a company, it was a Zaibatsu, a financial clique that functioned as the industrial arm of the Japanese imperial hardware. From 1932 to 36, Lord Semphill served as a technical and business consultant for Mitsubishi Heavy Industries. During this period, Mitsubishi was the primary military contractor for the Imperial Japanese Navy, building the warships and Zero fighter planes that would later devastate the Pacific Fleet. MI5 intercepted communications proving that Mitsubishi was the middleman used by the Japanese naval attaches in London to pay Semphill for top secret data on the fleet air arm. The Makihira link. In 1940, the head of Mitsubishi London's office, Makihira Satoru, was arrested for espionage. This confirms that Mitsubishi was a direct node, right, a direct part in the Beast Systems intelligent network, used to extract hardware secrets from the UK to upload into the Japanese military system, right? These aren't really independent governments or systems here. It's all one. You have to understand that. So, right, as I showed in the other video, part of Japan's government was hijacked. So even though part of Japan's system was friendly to Germany and didn't want war, the other part of the government did want war. And obviously was not friendly to Germany because they didn't honor the tripartite pact. So distant cousins, shared narrative. While the aristocratic Forbes Semphill and the industrial Forbes families are genealogically distinct, although they do link far back, I believe, they operated as two sides of the same system coin. The industrial Forbes Forbes magazine provided the industrial software for global capitalism and the rise of massive conglomerates like Mitsubishi by glorifying the Zaibatsu model, the Japanese, uh, the Zaibatsu model. The magazine helped normalize the very industrial complexes that were arming for war. The aristocratic Semphill. Semphill provided the physical hardware, carrier designs, and aviation training that allowed the Japanese Zaibatsu, right, Mitsubishi, and the Imperial Navy to become a global military threat. Right? So you see how they work together? So the Semphill mission and his Mitsubishi consultancy were essential steps in Japan's hardware upgrade. The beast system needed a powerful Japanese antagonist to force the quote unquote neutral remnant in America, or just neutral America, into a global conflict that would eventually delete the old sovereign nation states and replace them with a current global New World Order. Mitsubishi was the industrial vessel for this plan, and Semphill was a protected asset who delivered the keys. And I think I ended here. In our forensic audit of the Great Erasure, the post-war reintegration of the Japanese Zaibatsu industrial cliques into the Western globalist system proved that the World War was never about defeating an enemy, but about a system reset and hardware consolidation. Well, it was about defeating an enemy, so that's incorrect there. And obviously, you can see all my other videos about that. They did want to wipe away Germany and Europe and the white Christian European people. So, I mean, that's pretty obvious. The reverse course, the 1947 patch. Immediately following the 1945 reset, right at the end of the war, the initial plan was to deindustrialize Japan. However, the beast system quickly issued a reverse course software update. The subverters realized that a weak Japan might fall to the red version of the beast system before the merchant version could secure the registry, the Western version. John D. Rockefeller III and the Council on Foreign Relations were the primary system administrators sent to Japan to oversee the patch. They ensured that the massive industrial combines like Mitsubishi, the same one Semphill had armed, were not deleted but merely rebranded. Right? They did that in Germany too after the war. The Mitsubishi Rockefeller merged. While the standard script claims the Zaibatsu were broken up, they were actually reorganized into Keiretsu, a more subtle interconnected software grid, right? Financial or business grid. The Chase National Bank, Rockefeller, and the National City Bank of New York became the primary external servers for the reconstruction of Mitsubishi's industrial hardware. And then it says Mitsubishi Bank was allowed to remain the central processor for the group's many arms, ensuring that the capital remaining with the syndicate registry. And then through joint ventures, the technology that Semphill helped preload was merged with American aerospace and electronics source code, creating the modern unified globalist hardware we see today. So